Hi, so welcome to this session. This session we're going to be talking about enumeration. So let's look at how we can write enumeration. So enumeration is, of course, some sort of a way of keeping constant. It's shortened as enum. So you write an enum keyword, and then your definition, whatever it is you want. So in this case, let me say my naming is I want to have some programming language, so I call it programming language. That's the name of the enumeration. The basic syntax is just your keyword enum, and then you write whatever name you want, and then in here you are going to define your constants. You are going to define your constants. For instance, let's say I want to define some language, so let's say I have PHP, and then you separate each of the constants by a comma, and then let's say Java, let's say JavaScript, excuse me, so let's say we have JavaScript, and then let's say we have C#, let's say we have basically let me say C, and then let's say we have just some constants, so let's say we have TypeScript. Now, so these are some constants that have been defined. You can see that these constants are just defined like that, so I don't have to put them in string form like this. I don't have to do it like this. If you do it like this, it becomes an error. So this is a constant, and these are what I actually need. All right, so I have them like defined like that, and then I can access them by just calling my name dot whichever constant I want to access. So in this case, let's say I want a Java, for instance. I can just say console dot write line. So let's say I have this write line, and then here I just within my main method, so I just call my programming language dot. So when you see a dot, you can see all of them are accessible. See JavaScript, PHP, and TypeScript, they are all accessible. All right, so let's say anyone you want to echo out, let's say .java, for instance, comes out like this. So let's say I want to say I am a Java developer, so let me come here and put it in a string, and I say I want to write I'm a Java developer. I am a, instead of having to add code Java, so I'm just getting it. I want to get it from my enumerations, so I can just put this one as a template literal. So if I put it as a template literal, so it knows I'm talking about a variable, not just a constant, because I've put this one here. So we've done this before in the one of the previous classes. So let's see how this works. So now you can see I am a something. Yeah. So let me have developer, something like that, stuff like this. So if we run this, so you can see what we have here is I am a Java developer. You see what you got? What you got here was, you use an enumeration. So we see the output here, and so pretty quickly you can change. Let's say from here you can quickly change .php, and then you have it like that, so without having to add code. So like that. So if you run it, you can see changing to I'm a PHP developer. You're just in time. So one might ask the need for an enum. In what case would you want to use an enum? An enum can find its used when you have some basic constants. You have some constants that you don't want to save to database, but then these constants are used here and there in a lot of places. So instead of having to add code them in all those places, which would make it difficult to maintain if any of those constants would change in the future. So you can just create, a central place where you define all those constants. So in that case, you could use an enum for it. So you just have some of those constants defined in there, and then you can, pick and use. All right, so some other people you can use that for something like a constant non-changing drop down, you know, sort of, stuff like that. These are some of the examples of use cases that you can have in there. So for enum definition, you can see that we define some numbers and we can always access them by just calling that name. This can be any name, provided you follow the normal convention. You can start with a number, you understand. So, and then for C sharp, the best practice is that when you're defining your stuff like this, make it a capital letter. Even though if you make it a small letter, it works. But the way C sharp define its own internal variable will point you to a direction that that's what you're supposed to define yours. You can see pretty much letter is starting with capital letter, so that would be a good practice, right? So for each of the constant that you have defined, a number is automatically assigned to them. So for instance, this PHP has 0, this Java has 1, JavaScript has 2, C is assigned a 3, like that, starting from 0, and then incrementally goes up like that. So if I want to get the integer value of JavaScript, for instance, I can get it by casting the value, right? So let's say here in your main method, I just say hint JS value. Let me say, I say int JS value is equals to now I'm gonna have to, like I said, cast it, because if you have this one, if you put this programming language dot JavaScript, this is a string right off. This is a string, right? So this gives you a string. It's not giving you the internal, it gives you the value JavaScript, but what you want is its integer value. So you're going to have to you cast. So you have we've done casting type conversion, remember. So if we do this now, this is basically an integer, so this gets the integer value of the JavaScript. So if you have it like this, then you are having an integer. So let's have it written to our console. So let's say I have console dot right line. So now, so here I want to say the integer value of JavaScript is here. I just put JS value here, right? So if let's run it and see what we get, like this. So if you run it, then you see I'm a PHP developer, the integer value of JavaScript is 2. So if you count, you see that this is 0, 1, 2, like that, So that is automatic numbering assignments that it's assigned to those numbers. So but we can override these numbers. By default, this is giving 0, this is giving 0, like that, and this is giving 1. So that's the default assignment, but we can overwrite it actually. So we can jump, let's say we jump from here, now we jump to 9. So if we jump to 9, you understand, so this 9, instead of it being the original 2, it's not going to be 9. So if you run that, if you run this, so you can see the integer value of JavaScript is not 9 because we have overridden the initial value, right? So if you look at this one being is the same as what was assigned originally, so it's really a waste of time. It's not needed, right? It's a waste of time because it's 1 naturally. So writing equals to 1 is just a waste of time. Okay, so now look at what the value of C will be. You can guess what the value of C will be. Originally when this was 2, the value of C would be 3. But now that this is 9, it's going to just continue counting from there. Let's see what we get. So let's say I also come in here and I say just copy that, paste it. So I just say C value, and then here I have programming language dot C. So this gets the integer value of the C, and then I want to write it to console, so I just copy and have that pasted. So the integer value of C is C value, so let's say we have it like this. So you will then see that C would just continue from where JavaScript left off, from the value that we now assigned. So if you build that, run that by clicking on your the play button here, you can see that the value now continues from the new assigned value. So the C value is now 10. So this is a basic usage of an enum. So one might ask, why would you assign value? So I can tell you for a fact that you'll find it useful, because sometimes you have some drop down, and then in drop down you want to sort it. Let's say you want to sort this one alphabetically. So but sometimes the alphabetical order may not necessarily represent how you want to sort it. You may want to sort it with their numeric. Let's say you want to sort it with their numerical value. Let's say PHP carries more weight than JavaScript, and like that. So you want to have them by the weight they carry. So you want to assign certain weight to them. So you want to sort it by the weight, by their integer value, not their alphabetical order. That's just one of the use cases that you can have number being useful, the numerical assignment being useful. But you find a whole lot of it's about all this programming stuff is about creativity and how you find stuff, the right thing to use at the right time. Okay, so so this is a basic illustration to it. So we have the enum defined, and we have all these constants like that. Now from this moment going forward, I want us to introduce the way we write our codes. I want us to introduce something else to the way we write our codes. We've been writing everything within the same interface. So everything we write, we declare this enum, all the variables we've been declaring, all the operators. Now let's have more pages. Let's add more C# pages. How do we do that? Now, so I'm going to add a new so for us to do that, we'll just come into our program here on the right hand side, where you have this Tunga C# intro. This right hand side here, just right click on the project. So if you right click on the project, you see rebuild, build, clean, pack, publish, and all of that. So build will do the same thing as what we're doing here by clicking here. So this is going to build the project. Rebuild is to rebuild the project. The project has been built before, you want to rebuild it again. So clean, so you just want to clean up the project. All right. So analyze, encode, clean up. So this is going to do some sort of analysis and see vulnerability testing and all of those stuff like that. But what we want to do right now is to add a new page. You can simply add a new page by just writing just going into the folder, and right clicking normally using your window interface. But this is pretty handy. Just right click. When you right click, you go to add. Now when you add, what do you want to add? You want to add a new item, existing item, new folder, from controllers and all of those things, from cookie cutter and all of that, REST API client, machine learning. So I'll just say new item. That's what I want to add. Now, so when you click on new item, it's going to present you with certain things, items that could be added. You have a class, you have a class for SQL, your interface, component classes, and all of those things, or code file, cursor file, and all of those things. So I'm going to I will just say I want to create a class. But actually what I want to create is not a class. So it's an enum that I want to create. So I would call this one, I just call it a class. So I would say enum example. For instance, let's say I have enum example .cs. See how I named my file. So I'm starting with capital letter. If you name it with small letter, nothing spouse, it's going to work. But the best practice is the way, you know, the C# names its file itself is, you can see that it's capital letter, you know. So you follow the same convention, you know. That will be the best practice. So you have enum example.c# and you have had that. So by the time you add that, so we can come in here now. You can see that it's created as a class, because we said what we're creating was a class, but it was actually an enum. So I'm going to delete this class keyword. I will delete the class keyword, and then I will just call it an enum, you know, and this makes it an enum, you know, just like that. It just makes it an enum. Now this file like this, if you are coming from a Java background, you know that when you write, if you're not a Java developer, don't worry, just, you know, write on. I'm just saying for someone who's coming from a Java background, if you come in here, you will notice that your the name of the file is enum example.c#. In Java, you know, the name of the file has to be the class name. Here is not, you know. I think by the time we get to class, we can talk more about it. So let's say here I can change the class name here to something like role, and nothing would happen. Everything still works fine. What I'm having here is role, but the name that is assigned to the file is saved with is enum example. You know, there's no complaint. Everything works fine. But it's just good if you're defining a class, especially if the class is just one class that is inside the name. You know, it's a good practice to keep it like that as the file name. But if you don't, you know, everything works pretty well. So but what we are creating now is an enum. So let me change it to enum. So I say enum, and then I have a class here, the enum name to be role, and then let's say I define certain constant there. Let's say sysadmin. So sysadmin, and then let's say sysadmin, comma, then I have admin, sorry, comma, then I have, let's say, developer, then comma, then I say tech lead, then system architect, let's say sys architect. You know, just to name a few. You can add more while you're practicing. Now, so I just created, you can see, following what we did the other time. So I just have enum keyword, and then I have this the name of this particular one is row, and I define certain rows there. All right, so now I can go back to my program. This is what we've been using. Program.c# is the one that contains this main method. And you know, the program runs through the main method. Everything that you do, you know, is going to run through this main method here. All right, so I'm going to come back to this main method and call this external file that I have here. So I'm going to work from here and call this external file that we have here. So here now, let's say that I want to write that row. So I say console.writeLine, and I say here I am a, then within the parentheses I say row. The moment I call row is available, dot. So you can see all those definitions I have, all those keywords I have, admin, developer, these things. So I say I'm a tech lead. Yeah, I'm a tech lead. All right, so I have that. So if you run this now, run it and see what you get. You can see nothing spoils. You can see I'm a tech lead, and the tech lead comes, you know, right in here. Let's say I close this and just change dots easily. I can change I'm a sysadmin, you know, just like that, and like this. So this is defined in a file that is external to this, but it's still pretty much working, you know, the same way. So I'm a sysadmin. But now, you know why it's working the same way? It's because they are in the same namespace. Look at this namespace, Tunga C# intro. That's this namespace. If you look at this also, the enum example, look at the namespace Tunga CS sharp intro, because it belong in the same namespace. If I change this, namespace now, and I say extended, for instance, extended Tunga C sharp intro, look at that. If I save that and run it, you can see there's a build error. This is one of the first time you're seeing the build error, right? So if you see this, you say there were build errors. Would you like to continue to run the last successful build? If you continue, you're going to see the last result, not the update that you've done. So you don't feel like you want to continue. If you continue, you'll see the last one that worked. That's not what you want. You've written an update and you want your updates to be seen. So you don't want to continue. What you want to do is to fix the error. You want to fix the error, so you say no. So when you say no, then it's going to show you what the error is. The name row does not exist within this current context. So within this context, there's nothing like row, because they are not in the same umbrella. They are not under the same umbrella, so it's not seen. They are not under the same namespace. All right. So this role is not going to be seen. So just like the other time it was seen, it say dot. It doesn't know anything like row. They are not in the same family. So how do we sort out this? So to sort out this is just simply to import it. You import it into this current context, since it says it doesn't know it. So to import something external that is not in the same umbrella to this, you're going to be using, and that is what this using is for. So in our first program we said it, but it might not be pretty clear to you, but it should be clearer now. Now if I say using, so it's pretty, IntelliSense will help you. So extended, the moment I start typing, so everything that is available will show up. Extended C sharp Tunga C sharp intro, which is the new namespace here that we have in here. This one here, the namespace here. All right. So the moment we do that and we terminate it, it becomes available again. So you can see that it's not known again. And then if you use a dot, now, you can see that it's pretty available now. So they are in different namespaces, but then because we have imported it, then it becomes available. It becomes available like that. So pretty much this is for you to know what you're really doing. So this namespace thing should become a little clearer. And then the using keyword, which is the keyword we use in importing external stuff, should become even clearer. So if you run it now, you can see that it should run pretty fine, the same way it ran the first time. You can see I'm a system architect, because what I use here is role of system architect. So what have we learned? So we've learned how to declare a variable, an enum variable using within a particular context. And then we learned how to also assign, get the assigned value, integer assigned value of each of the constants. We equally learned how you can have an external file, not just an enum, an external file, and then import it into another context, and make it available, even if they are not in the same namespace. All right, so let's move on.